Department of Justice Inspector General issued a report that is sharply critical of how the FBI conducted the Clinton email investigation. And the president says that undercuts Robert Mueller's probe of collusion with Russia and obstruction of justice. Joining me now from South Carolina, Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy, chair of the House Oversight Committee. Mr. Chairman, before we get to the IG report, I want to discuss how President Trump and his lead lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, are using the IG report. Here's the president linking what the Inspector General found in the Clinton investigation to the Mueller investigation of him.
I think that the report yesterday, maybe more importantly than anything, it totally exonerates me. There was no collusion. There was no obstruction.
Mr. Chairman, does the IG report exonerate President Trump?
Well, it certainly helps him, Chris. I mean, keep in mind, the same people, the same players that were involved in the Clinton probe later moved to the Russia probe. John Brennan, who said he should be in the dustbin of history. Jim Comey, who said impeachment was too good of a remedy. Loretta Lynch, who wanted Hillary Clinton to win. And then we've got Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, the two FBI employees. Chris, and this is what's most important to me. Those two presumed and pronounced Hillary Clinton's innocence before her investigation ended, and they presumed and pronounced Donald Trump's guilt before the investigation even began. So when you have that pervasiveness of bias, yes, it's going to help the person who is complaining about the investigation.
On the other hand, Robert Mueller was not part of the Clinton investigation. Peter Strzok was fired by Mueller as soon as he found out about those very biased and damaging texts. And of course, we don't know what Mueller has found in the last year in his investigation. So again, I have to ask, has President Trump been exonerated? I clearly understand your point that there was bias in the FBI, but has he been exonerated on allegations of collusion and obstruction?
Well, part of that depends upon what you view the Mueller probe as. Now, you mentioned collusion. The only person in the universe who claims to have evidence of collusion is Adam Schiff, and unlike any other secret he's ever had, he's actually kept this one. He's never told anyone what evidence he has. So there's no evidence of collusion. Obstruction of justice, Chris, good luck having your star witness being Jim Comey in any prosecution, from shoplifting to obstruction of justice. Good luck if that's your star witness. For me, the Mueller probe is about what Russia did in 2016 and who, if anyone, they did it with. So that's what I mean when I say Mueller probe. And I hope he does write the definitive accounting of what Russia did. But there's no evidence Donald Trump did it with them, and Jim Comey would be about the sorriest witness that I can imagine a prosecutor could have.
I find this very significant because you have not been in the tank for President Trump on all of this.
I'm not now. I'm not now.
No, I understand that. I'm not saying you are now, but are you saying this morning that Donald Trump is off the hook in the Mueller investigation?
Well, I don't know what Mueller has. I do know this, that bias is so pervasive, and everyone who's ever stood in front of a jury and had to explain it away will tell you it is the most miserable feeling in the world, and I have never seen this level of bias. So you have Peter Strzok, who can't think of a single American who can vote for Donald Trump, and you got Peter Strzok who says, we'll stop it. The campaign and the presidency will stop the campaign, and then if that doesn't work, the day after the election, he's talking about impeachment. So how would you like that to be your lead investigator? 2 weeks after you're assigned to look into what a foreign country did to us, the only thing he can think to talk about is an insurance policy to keep Donald Trump from winning, and then he says, we'll stop it. I assume the we is the FBI, so how would you like, if you're Bob Mueller, to present that case to a jury?
You are co-chairing a hearing on Tuesday where the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, who issued this damaging report, will appear. What are the main questions you want to ask him?
Well, there are a bunch. It's a 500-page report, and the good news, Chris, is Michael Horowitz proved what we wanted the FBI and the DOJ to do, which is that you can have an investigation that is fact-centric and fair and even-handed. There are a lot of questions I have for him. Number one, the Hillary Clinton failure to prosecute was predicated upon two things. Number one, that her emails were not exposed to foreign actors. There's some evidence that that's not true. Number two, that there was no evidence of intent. Well, of course, there's no evidence of intent. You didn't bother to ask her. You went into the interview knowing that she was not going to be charged. So I think some members will ask about that. A lot of members are going to ask about the bias. The same team that exonerated her implicated him before the investigation began, and I suspect some members will ask about the coziness between the FBI and the media.
While the FBI is very critical, as you pointed out, and we're going to get into it in more detail about actions taken by Comey and Strzok and others, here is his overall judgment on the final conclusion of the Clinton investigation. I want to put this up on the screen. This is from the IG. We found no evidence that the conclusions by the prosecutors were affected by bias or other improper considerations. Rather, we determined that they were based on the prosecutor's assessment of the facts, the law, and past department practice. And here is current FBI Director Christopher Wray.
This report did not find any evidence of political bias or improper considerations actually impacting the investigation under review.
So, when they say the final judgments, yes, there may have been bias, but that didn't affect the final judgments, are the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, and Christopher Wray, the current FBI Director, are they wrong?
Well, I'll say this. Why did Loretta Lynch ask it to be called a matter and not an investigation? Why was Cheryl Mills in the room when the target was being interviewed? Why did you write an exoneration memo 6 weeks before she was interviewed? Why did you start planning your press conference 2 months before the investigation was over? Here's where I depart from Chris Wray. I don't think it's my job to prove the bias impacted the investigation. I think it's his job to prove that it did not. Here's what I know. They exonerated her before the interview. They said she did nothing wrong before they even bothered to talk to her, and this same group said Donald Trump should not be the president and or should be impeached before the investigation even began. If that is not textbook bias, which is the prejudging of an outcome, I mean, that's what bias is. We are prejudging the outcome. We're prejudging her innocence before we talk to her. We're prejudging his guilt before we even begin to look into the fact pattern. That's bias, and yes, it impacted the outcome. The most important element is intent. That's what they all told us. She did not have the intent to commit a crime. The best way to figure that out is to talk to her. But they went into the interview, Chris, saying the only thing she'll be charged with is maybe lying to us. If you're Donald Trump or if you're any other defendant in the country, how would you like that deal? We're not going to charge you with anything as long as you tell us the truth. That is blanket immunity, and everyone in the country would like that as they go into an interview with the FBI.
Now, a couple of top Republican leaders, House Majority Leader McCarthy, Senate Majority Leader McConnell, are saying, given all of this and given the fact that the Mueller investigation has gone on for more than a year, it's time to wrap it up. It clearly is putting a cloud over the president. Do you agree with that?
I think it's putting more than just a cloud over the president. I think it's putting a cloud over the entire country. This is a unique case, Chris. It is a counterintelligence investigation that's become public. Most of them do not. It's a criminal investigation that has political overtones. Most of them do not. Combine the two. It is a public counterintelligence investigation with political overtones. This is not your traditional investigation. So I would encourage Bob Mueller, keep doing exactly what Rod Rosenstein hired you to do. Bob Mueller did not volunteer. We're here because Rod Rosenstein decided we needed special counsel. Do the very best you can with the evidence and the witnesses you have, but understand that this is being used by political enemies to hurt Donald Trump. Adam Schiff wants to be the chairperson of the House Intelligence Committee. Nancy Pelosi wants to be the Speaker of the House. They want Bob Mueller to do what Peter Strzok and Hillary Clinton could not do, which is beat Donald Trump. So just be aware that you're being used would be my advice to Bob Mueller.
I've got about 3 minutes left. I want to get, I'm going to ask you for quick answers. Should, based on what you knew before and what you know now from the IG's report, should Hillary Clinton have been charged with a crime?
I need to interview her effectively. I need to ask her those questions on intent. We know she lied. We know she concealed evidence. We know they destroyed evidence. Those are all circumstantial markers of intent. So I would need to interview her without going into it, knowing I was going to clear her like the FBI did.
Should Comey and Peter Strzok be called to testify before Congress?
Yes.
On what issues?
Well, Peter Strzok, you name it, the highest level of bias I've ever witnessed in any law enforcement officer. And Comey, in the words of my grandmama, has some explaining to do. He's having a hard time getting his stories to match up. Horowitz was very critical of him, and deservedly so.
Finally, where are House Republicans in your demand, your call for the Department of Justice to share more documents, especially on this question of the use by the FBI of a confidential informant to penetrate the Trump campaign? And also, do you believe, as some of your colleagues have suggested, that Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein threatened the House and threatened staffers for demanding those documents?
Well, I wasn't in the room for that January meeting. I've been in the room with some other meetings where tensions ran really high. We had a meeting Friday night under the heading of Minor Miracles. You had members of the House working on a Friday night. Paul Ryan led this meeting. You had Devin Nunes, Bob Goodlatte, myself, and everyone you can think of from the FBI and the DOJ, and we went item by item on both of those outstanding subpoenas. We either have compliance, we have partial compliance, or we have non-compliance. And Paul made it very clear there's going to be action on the floor of the House this week if the FBI and DOJ do not comply with our subpoena request. So Rod Rosenstein, Chris Rape, you were in the meeting. You understood him just as clearly as I did. We're going to get compliance, or the House of Representatives is going to use its full arsenal of constitutional weapons to gain compliance. This is too important. It was too important before the IG report. The IG report has even heightened the need for us to understand what happened in 2016. So the new guys can either be part of the cleanup crew or they can be part of the cover-up crew, and I would encourage them to be part of the cleanup crew.
And very briefly, sir, the areas where you see non-compliance and you might see action on the floor this week, that's on what area?
It would be FISA abuse. It would be a little bit on the Strzok page text. We're a little miffed that we read that most damning text the same time you did when we've been asking for it for a long time. So Devin's subpoena is largely, most of the issues are with Devin's subpoena and not Chairman Goodlatte's, and that's FISA abuse, and it's what led up to the Russia probe, and Chris and Rod there is no ambiguity. The Speaker of the House was really clear. You're going to comply or there's going to be floor action, and I think they got the message.
And floor action would be
the full panoply of constitutional weapons available to the people's house.
Including contempt of Congress?
That would be among them, yes, sir. I don't want the drama, I want the documents. And I think that Chris and Rod got that message. Contempt of Congress just means we're going to be talking about this 6 years from now. I don't want that. I want the documents. I don't want the drama, and I don't want the floor fight. But they need to know that we're willing to do it. And unless they were in a different meeting than the one, I have never seen Paul Ryan as animated as I saw him Friday night. He is sick and tired of the delay, and he communicated that point very effectively.
Chairman Gowdy, thank you. Thanks for your time. Always good to talk with you. And I've got to say, you had a lot to say today. Thank you, sir.
Happy Father's Day. Thanks.
Same to you, sir. Up next, we'll bring in our